Doyle.
Good afternoon. My name is Hugh Doyle. So was the course of Wendy. Thank you very much for inviting me to read, and congratulations on your latest book.
Congratulations on yours.
Thank you. So I had a debut collection come out this summer also, Persistence of Questions. But today I'm going to read you a couple of poems from my dissertation, which I've just handed in recently. So glad to have that done. First poem's called The Boxer. The Boxer was a homeless guy. I used to live in Rathmines in Dublin when I first left home, and he used to hang around outside the post office and shadow box for the most of the day, just lost in his own world. The Boxer waits again for the bell, wonders if it'll ever stop ringing. Dawn jabs at his eyes. He emerges from his corner, sometimes bloodied, often bowed but never beaten. Outside the post office, bobbing and weaving, the Boxer on Rathmines Road Upper cuts a sway through a crowd, jabbing at life. Around his ring, weaving between wave drops, ducking abuse. This Southside southpaw, counted out by the world, fights and feints his way through endless bouts of day, losing on points but showing real heart. Until he lays himself out on his concrete canvas, beneath his apron of tears, peeling with roars and jeers. The Boxer waits, fearing the final bell, unsure what would happen if it ever stopped ringing. This poem's called Nests. My son recently left home to go to Swansea University. It's kind of about that time when people kind of move on. Nests. In the garden at the rear of our house, perched on the edge of decking, a bird box spills maternal song upon the ripening berries, briars. A teenage boy roosts in his feathered room, observes whirls, beady-eyed electronic peepholes into life lived elsewhere. After work, his mother visits the bird box to check on her babies, counting days, dreading their finite number. Fear and hope, given the right conditions, grow. We worry, try not to let it show. He might never know of it, though some days we fear he will. From the kitchen I watch her peer into the now empty bird box, I sense a tear, but privier to her secrets inside she is shining, proud to have known so beautiful a bird. As she strides back to her own nest from her hands, fledgling feathers freed, fly. Thank you.
At the last launch, I read a poem that should have been in this book, and it was left out. But because it's one of my favourite poems, and it's a sonnet, those of you who bought books, or who will see that I've got them on a piece of card, so you can have them as well, because it should have been in the book. So I'm going to read that one for you now. Excuse me while I just wet my lips. And it's about the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. It is surely worth the wait, the long queues, the drifting along endless corridors into hundreds of rooms of Madonnas, with or without child, sifting through calamities, wars, tortures, tombs, to reach Botticelli's La Primavera, spring's allegory, portrayed by the artist with the easy grace and warmth of early Renaissance art, the integrity and spirit of the artist embracing a slow pace. But it is Flora, goddess of flowers, centre right, casting blossom from the folds of her sprigged dress, her winsome smile stealing the limelight from Mercury, the three Graces, Chloris and Zephyrus. This painting sums up the optimism of the season, the nascence of spring, a genesis for everyone. So I shall read no more from there, but I'm going to do what I did last time and read a couple that I hope might be my next book. Although I have got a book out with publishers at the moment which I describe as my most miserable book. And if that does get published, you'll have to come and be miserable for an afternoon. If not, the next book is going to be about India, which I went to in April, and travels with my son. My son lives in Uganda, and he's lived all over the world, and I've been to most of the places he's lived in. So Jenny and I went to Uganda in July to see him. I wouldn't call it a holiday, an adventure maybe, and I'm going to read just 3 poems that hopefully will be in that next collection. So the first one is called The Cottage at Ziwa. The cottage at Ziwa on a rauky afternoon is dim. A single solar lamp, no electric points, no light in the bathroom, so shine a torch down the toilet pan, just in case. In bed, sheets scream damp, clammy pillows wieldy, a faint dent of head through the mesh of a green mozzie net. It's like struggling beneath the surface of a pond of strangling algae and blanket weed. And just as I'm reading about cerebral malaria that causes the brain to swell, induces permanent damage, seizures, coma, death, a rogue mosquito tunnels through the tent of net, hides in the folds. Sleep does not come easy, as dreams drape of death. In the early shivering morning, in scoops of mist on southern grasses, we walk with southern white rhinos, huge against the brush of trees, bronzed by a sheen of rain. So my India holiday, I'm not reading any Indian poems at the moment, but my Indian holiday was 5-star hotels, luggage carried for you, air-conditioned coach, fantastic. Well, Uganda was the exact opposite. Think earth closets, spiders that big, hippos, So I'm going to read you one about glamping with hippos. I'm glamping on the shores of the Nile. At the precise point hippos leave the river each night to graze. In daylight it is tranquil, enchanting. Miniature islands of vegetation glue along the water's flow. Sun-mirrored river, breeze-stirred trees, tweed smudges of elephants on the opposite bank. And after the roke, darkness descends with sudden abruptness, yet all around is in motion, has shapes, emits sounds. A huge storm, sheet lightning swells my room, an abstract thunder booms, a rebellion of rain, though muffled, on the tuft of thatched roof. Baboons could clamber into the bathroom, snakes slither over the half walls, hippos cant the tent to one side. 2 minutes after retiring, the grunt and huff of hippos, lumbering and squelching on the grass outside my tent. And I'm too nervous to look out, because if I can't see them, I can pretend they're not there. So close, so dangerous. And they are the second most dangerous killer of humans, with those big teeth. But I found out the following morning that Jenny and my son Matthew had been walking back to their campsite and had come face to face with hippos, and they just ran quickly behind a cement bar until they were rescued. And then, if the next book comes to fruition, it's going to be called Janky Tuk-Tuks from India and a Clanky Jeep, which is what we went in with my son. It was his Jeep. He wasn't sure if he would get us anywhere. But so I've written a poem called Not Such a Clanky Jeep. Tires claw at nothing. Clods of mud spatter windows opaque with dusk. Vegetation takes on monstrous shapes. Night descends on this rarely used track, a shortcut we supposed, signposted the honeymoon route that loops a U back to where we started, if we can survive a night spent in this national park, patrolled only by ferocious creatures. I could embellish this scenario, tell how a pride of lions surround us, how a lioness graces the bonnet, paws at the windscreen as we huddle terrified, while the others prowl and settle down to wait outside, and how we see a leopard sprawled along a branch of the tamarind tree that overshadows the jeep, how unrecognizable eyes glitter in the now absolute dark. Shapes smudge to warn us. A herd of elephants approaches, and although they scatter the lions, and the lioness vacates her warm spot on the bonnet, and the leopard scales back his presence, one shove from an elephant, and we will overturn. Our driver refuses to exit the jeep to tie the winch to the tamarind tree. He turns the engine on again, manoeuvres the jeep back and forth, the engine screams, while we push the backs of our seats as if this could help. Eventually, the jeep heaves out of the quagmire. We drive away in exultation, yet not knowing if a deeper morass awaits, or the imagined elephants loiter around the next bend. Well, it could have happened like that. It was very, very scary. Jenny, it was very scary. We could have been stuck there all night. So hopefully, the next time we're all here, maybe in another 2.5 years, we'll have a whole book of these poems. But thank you all for coming. There is tea and drinks and cake if you wanted. There are books to buy, and I'm happy to sign them for you. And once more, thank you, everybody. It does. I think that's
going on through the top of the